In climate change, is it your view that climate change, as we have called that occurrence, is it due to human activity, or would it have occurred without human activity?
David, it's been well documented that it's largely caused by human conduct. And this poses an enormous risk for our economic security, for really our social stability. I see this climate risk as the single biggest and most certain and formidable risk that mankind faces.
Now, in the Obama administration, the Paris Accord was agreed to by most countries in the world. The United States has now pulled out of that, though technically we're still in for another year or so. Do you think the Paris Accord is strong enough to have an impact on climate change?
Well, it's clearly strong enough to have an impact on climate change, but it is not strong enough to prevent what's going to come. And I don't believe we're on a path, or anywhere close to being on a path, to meeting the goals set out by the Paris Accord and by the targets. But carbon emissions are cumulative, and so inaction is just plain not acceptable. So what I keep pushing is, I think it's very important for businesses to disclose in their financial statements their climate risk, to keep investing in economic resilience in terms of supply chains and in terms of important economic infrastructure. I think that's very important. I think it's also very important to prepare our kids, our grandchildren, for what is certain to come, and to try to prevent the very, very worst outcomes. And so I don't worry as much about the Paris Accord. What I focus on are the things that I think we need to do. Now, I spend my time on working on solutions, market-based solutions to reduce carbon emissions in China, because the way I look at China is this: they're the biggest emitter of carbon in the world. They emit more than the EU and the US combined. And they've been showing some leadership, but if they don't succeed, we've got no chance of avoiding the worst outcomes.
Those people who in the government say we don't want to take climate change actions that some people like you are advocating, we want to get out of the Paris Accord, what constituency are they appealing to? Who is the constituency that is saying, please, let's not do something on climate change?
I believe that there are very strong vested interests that have a different viewpoint than the average American. If you look at the average American, there's a high percentage of people that are concerned about climate change. It's just not their number one issue. But when you look at all of the industries that have a vested interest, beginning with the oil industry and all of the carbon-based fuels, and for instance, I think one of the things that's going to be very important in dealing with this problem are economic incentives. So I think there's a whole variety of economic incentives we could put in place to put a price on carbon, taxes and cap and trade systems, but also eliminating the huge subsidies we pay to discover carbon-based fuels. And we have no shortage of them today. There's no excuse for doing that. So there's a whole variety of things. I think the biggest thing that the average American can do is lobby their politicians, if they're customers of business, letting businesses know how much they care about this, because I think behavior change and education is ultimately a big part of the solution.